3 games probably of the whole 2 tournaments back to back, but also like make it stop, right?
Yeah. I also thought it was funny when you said like, oh shoot, it was today, because I was recently told a story at Challengers Cup of like one of my other friends. And so the story is like one of the guys on my team has been friends with like one of the other guys on my team for forever, since they were like elementary schoolers or something. And anyway, they're going over to said friend's place in order to pick him up, and they're all going to go to the Games Workshop together, and they're going to play some Warhammer there. And the guy says, sorry guys, I'm not available, I broke my leg.
Okay.
And like one of the other friends is like, oh my god, are you okay, like do you need to go to the hospital or whatever? And the other friend picks up the phone and is like, no you fucking didn't, Tomas, we're gonna come pick you up, we're gonna go play some Warhammer today. And they show up and his leg just like isn't broken. It's just like, why, how did you think you were gonna get away with this lie? I'm gonna see you before the cast would have come off. But you know, as soon as you said that, that's what it made me think of. Anyway, I got the recording started up. Welcome back, everybody. That's going to be your cold open for today. I'm Josh Yoshi Howard, and join me on that side of the camera is, of course, Wesley, Nemo the Fish, St. Hines, a recent winner of the Las Vegas Open. Wesley, we've had you on a lot of times. I mean, does this just feel like part of the routine for you at this point?
I mean, I like being here. I think it's 5. I don't know.
It's definitely at least 4. Because Dingbat was asking if you're into double digits. It's like, no, nobody is close to double digits yet, but you're definitely setting the pace.
Gem City, Bridgehead, Recon, detachment things, the Recon GT, and now this. I think we're 5.
I think it's 5, yeah.
Yeah.
Also, if you found like the Recon guide that I made you, like, hey, tell me I'm stupid about this, you know, it could be 6 if you want.
No. I like doing weird things with guard. I know I've said many times before that like my favorite part of 40K is the answering the meta rather than like settling into it kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that does like intrinsically lead to like, oh, this cool thing happened, which also tends to lead to more interviews, right? Because there's not many people who are, I guess, psychotic enough to be like, what if we threw an Aegis defense line here, right? And I've got the 2 Pelican Valkyries ready to go for my upcoming GT soon.
You promised me it was going to happen. Yeah. I do legitimately think, kind of on the guard stuff, you say that you like play basically every model in a way that a lot of people like don't have the time or energy to do. I think the Valkyrie is one of those that is like, has more play. I think most things in the guard codex like has more play. No, to be clear, I don't think good is a very different bar.
I have never spent so long looking at a datasheet rule of a unit and just been like, how in the world can I use this, only for the answer to be no, there really is no world I would ever use this datasheet rule.
That's how I feel about like the Chimera rule, where it's just like, you know, there's technically ways to use it, but you have to then put an officer inside the Chimera and not want to order them after they get out of the Chimera. It's just like, but
well, and also when you factor in the deadly demise of the Valkyrie, the only reason you would use its datasheet rule is to disembark the unit to protect it from taking, you know, breakout mortals when they die. But if you're 10 or less models, the expected value from the deadly demise of the vehicle is higher than the expected value of the mortals they'll roll on one.
That's really funny. Yeah. Well, anyway, let's go ahead and focus in a little bit. So one of the things that I kind of want to talk about is you've been a player who has shown up on this channel a lot because, like you said, you have been like setting trends, right? A lot of the people who are playing Bridgehead stole your list, right? A lot of the people who are playing Recon, including somebody who says that they did it independently, right, are basically just playing variations on your list. What is the drive in order to play all these new things that other people aren't really looking at? Also, this is the Muppet down here.
I think a large part of it boils down to that previous thing of just like man, I just love how much versatility is in the game. Especially when I was looking at like 9th edition 40K, back when it was just like, oh, you know, I can intentionally take like a 7-man squad for this really niche scenario, right? Or like this one guy's got an Infernal Pistol for this really niche scenario. And so I love the idea of just doing something because it works in my mind in the way I want it to be, rather than it being something that somebody else wanted to do. My previous history from 40k is I used to play a lot of Magic, and I don't think I once played a deck that was considered meta, despite doing pretty well outside. I didn't do like any Pro Tours or anything, but I won several large tournaments playing like Maze's End, for example, which was a deck way back in the time was considered horrible, right? And so I think for me, the fun part of list building in 40k is the same elements of 40k on the table, right? Where you get to like turn 2 and you're like, okay, what's the puzzle I'm solving? What do I want to beat? And it's really fun to look at 40k list building the same way, of just being like, I'm not playing this Dorn because this Dorn is good. I'm not playing this battle tank because this battle tank has high damage. I'm playing these pieces because my goal is to be able to do these cards every turn of the game. My goal is to be able to answer these armies, consistently and well. And I guess I just view that a lot more weirdly than some people. But it boils down to, when you look at a list and you're like, I have one really niche, stupid thing I want to solve, a lot of those really niche units do that. They might not be good damage, they might be great on it, but at the end of the day, if you're looking for a data sheeted rule and you're looking for units that do things, it's there. You just have to be willing to test them out and try them out.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I know one of the big things that you initially brought up that I think a lot of other people have kind of taken to heart really aggressively is that it's really hard already to just kill 10 bodies for a lot of armies, right? Especially in shooting. In melee, it's it's a different thing, but in shooting, it's really hard to just kill 10, even 5-up bodies sometimes, but you give them a 4-up or a 3-up, or in Recon, it can be as good as a 2-up if you're already in cover. It's really, really hard to remove that in ways that I think a lot of people aren't used to, and it's really led to like a situation where it's like, well, what if I had 200 of them? And so we were seeing like a lot of this come through. And I think one of the things that we're going to be doing today is there's a bunch of people on Reddit. There's been a couple of Reddit threads on you, and one of the things that I thought was really interesting, let me find it again. Sorry, I had it up.
It's not good.
Wraith Lord says, this is the reaction to the Knights meta. Everyone was prepared for the Knight meta that we have had recently. The armies were skewing heavily towards anti-armor. And I'm curious how much that actually factored into your desire to play Recon.
Not really at all, to be honest. So it is true that outside of triple despoiler CK, Recon Guard just straight up 20-0s every variant of Knights, usually very consistently. But no, this actually isn't something I've mentioned really, but it's worth mentioning because I said it on the Tactical Tortoise Discord last night. But the real reason I started playing Recon is because my 40k team, we do 40k Jeopardies that I make for them from time to time, where it's like, like one category would be previous tournament results, one category would be like guess that data sheet, what's this model, like stuff like that, right? And what we always do is that whoever loses, the winner gets to pick their army for our next team's tournament. And I was going to win, and I fully threw just for fun stuff, and so the person who won was like, I know you should play Recon. Because I'd been trash talking it actually very, very consistently. And I was like, okay, we'll give it a shot, see how it goes, because Bridgehead had just been nerfed and I was about to swap to Marines. And we try Recon, and I 2 tournaments in a row just get eight total 20-0s. Just straight up 20-0s back to back to back to back. And then it clicks and we're like, wait a second. This is good, right? And so it really started because of that. But the other thing is, it started in teams because we tend to look at teams from a perspective of, I want, usually 2 armies that are very, very good into melee dense heavy boards, 2 armies that are very, very good into gunline open boards, usually like 2 take all comers, and then 2 lists that we are going to play around and defend. Usually is how we tend to look at it. And we wanted a list that filled that very good on gunline open boards. And we were like, well, an army that always gets cover, an army that always has +2 to save, and an army that those gunline armies don't get to use their AT on is good.
Yeah.
And so the army was originally played as, it was actually a guard army meant to counter guard on WTC. And it did it very well. And then I transitioned it from teams to singles because it just
kept
turned
winning.
it into a list that I loved. It wasn't even just like a stat check list. It's Recon objectively feels kind of like Magic to me, where it's you go into the game and you're like, I have only one real thing to do on my turn. It's like I'm playing a control deck, right? I have like precision and shooting. That's my only thing, and everything else is like, you know, rapid ingress. My 5 reactive stratagems go to ground, right? It's everything is responsive and reactive, and it feels a lot more like I'm playing the game with my opponent rather than it's my turn, your turn, my turn, your turn.
Oh, interesting.
And I love that aspect.
Yeah, that's very interesting because a lot of people, when they play Recon, feel like they're watching you play solitaire. Which I'm curious what your thoughts are on that, because it is just like, it feels like Recon has an answer for everything, and so there's kind of like an element of, yeah, you're reacting to what your opponent is doing, but if you always have the answers, like, you know, it could kind of be a bot that they're playing. And so I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
You know, it's interesting because I think a lot of my opponents tend to psych themselves out a lot too, which is what leads to that. Because like for example, like Recon's 6-inch reactive and its -2 to charge together are very strong. I think I only did that like twice the whole tournament. But it's just like having it there tends to throw people off a little bit to board states that feel weird. I think the real issue that the army has that leads to solitaire gameplay is that the army wins the trading game always, and no one is willing to be the person who initiates a fully in the open trading game. Right, and so like if you look at Recon and you're like, I'm just going to trade 6 or 7 turns, 6 or 7 turns in a row, like we're 3.5 rounds in right into the game, and just nothing happens, Recon always wins. It feels one-sided and horrible.
Yeah.
But if you're willing to do things like what Folger did in round 3 of our game, where he's like, he immediately recognizes, right, he's like, I lose if I keep doing this, and just chucks forward, then the game becomes a game again. Right, but like you have to be someone who looks at an army knowing you're not Custodes, where you're like, I have 6 units, and recognize that against Recon, you are Custodes with like 6 units, right? Your army might have 12, it might have 15, it might have a lot of pieces, but if you aren't willing to play the game with Recon and you're just going to play around the things that exist, Recon is going to make you feel like Custodes, and then it becomes very solitaire feeling.
Yeah, that makes sense, because I think that one of the other big dangers is you have to either be an extraordinarily good player or have already like played against the army before in order to like make those kind of decisions. It takes me back to like a game that I played up against Tau back when I was playing like Dorns and Bulgrin, and after the game he was like, yeah, if you just like advance your entire army into the middle of the board on turn 1, it would have been a really hard game. It was a really hard game anyway, but it's like one of those things where it's like, if you don't know that's like the correct play to do, you have to be really, really good to identify that, or not very good. And sometimes, like, you know, some people just do that. But I think that's one of the really interesting things. One of the other sentiments that I've been seeing a lot of on Reddit, this one is from People's Ragnar, who's one of the mods of the Astra Militarum subreddit, says, remember, Recon didn't win this event. Wesley is an incredible player. Wesley won the event. And I'm kind of curious what your thoughts are on how much of the victory we can attribute to the list building, or like the list, right, which obviously you designed. We're going to take that part of it out, versus you just being really good at the game.
I mean, you know, I've seen that one a lot going around, and the immediate thing to mention is it makes my heart so happy that people say that stuff, right? I just like, I don't know, I love the community, I love every part of it, and it's just, I like that people are like, the list is good, XYZ is good. Also, you know, it's Wesley. It makes me happy. But I think it's weird because it's that level of like, I struggle a lot with that level of like, I know I'm good at the game, but how good, kind of thing. And when I was playing Combined Guard for the first few years, it was really hard to distinguish between like, am I just stat checking people with hordes or am I good with hordes?
Hmm.
And I think the answer is I'm really good with hordes. And part of why I mentioned that is I play a lot of tactical tortoises on Trevi's server in his pod systems,
Hmm.
and same thing. I do a lot of TTS leagues online, and I don't like to play guard in those leagues because it feels weird to go to like a casual league with my army I'm intending to like do really well with and play
Yeah.
against people who are looking for casual games with it. And some notable things that happened this year as a result of it is I'm the rank 1 CSM player in last year's circuit on Trevi's pod.
Sure.
I have 2 GT wins with Imperial Knights, one with Space Marines, and then a bunch of other stuff. So um, I don't think I am like best in the world amazing player. I think I'm really good, but I think the fact that we have many cases where I will go to a recon tournament or a tournament as recon and get best general, and then the second guy that about recon will be like 2 and 4. Does showcase that the army is insanely hard to play.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's one of the interesting things that we noted is there was another player at the event who was playing almost an identical list, maybe actually identical list to the one that you were bringing, and they ended up going like 4-2. But it is one of the armies where I know I've said this before. I think there's fewer than 5 players in the world who both want to play this style, and I think I would trust to like actually like win a GT, right? Like I think Nico Seguer, or however you say it, from Team France, right? Like he did well at WTC. It was a different style of recon, but it's still a lot of the same core. And then like Ed Watts took it to like Goonhammer Open or something.
I think it was Sheffield or whatever it was.
It was some GT in the UK, and he also went 4-1. I think he lost in like round 5. But it's like one of those things where it's very obvious that if you're not already a good player, this list and this style is not going to do, like, you're not going to get free wins off of it in the same way that a lot of people would expect. With that in mind, I'm actually kind of curious then, because a lot of people seem to be of the opinion that, yeah, we've talked about this before. We'll talk about it again. The hard matchups are obviously ones where they have ignores cover or a lot of melee. And let's go ahead and talk about the ignores cover, because I know at this event you played up against your teammate Glynaceer, who was playing Tau. And I'm curious what your thoughts are, because that's probably the army that I can think of, maybe also Votan to a degree, as the armies that have the most volume ignores cover shooting. And what's the difficulties that you find in those matchups?
So the hard part when you're and there's the issue with most gun lines is that 25 millimeter infantry, even when they're like 25 26 model units, aren't that hard to hide. Like I played obviously 10 games this tournament. I went second in at least 6 or 7 of them. And outside of one game, despite having 180 models on the board, my opponent did not shoot me round 1. And then the one game it did happen, it was just like 6 to 7 shots from one character that went back into a Falcon, and that was it. And that's kind of the issue that these ignore or cover gun lines have is when you're looking at the game is, yes, they have enough shots to kill me over 5 turns, but when you play perfectly, they don't get 5 turns to do it. And so the Tau matchup was a really good example of that, because turn 1, he does not get to shoot me. Turn 2, I get like area denial and like cleanse. I walk out to the 2 objectives, do them, and then I lose 2 more 10-mans, and so I'm down 30 models. And then finally turn 3, 4, 5 comes the shove, and now he has to kill 196 guardsmen over 3 turns, and any turn that he does not kill all of them means 0 primary. And so he is killing 70 to 80 guardsmen a turn, but it's not enough, right? So he goes 3, 4, 5, only getting 5s, and they're gone. Right. It's the same thing with the Eldar matchup, right? On Folger's go turn, he kills like 70 guardsmen. It's a huge amount. But the issue is he didn't get to do it turn 1 or turn 2. And so when the shove finally comes on turn 3, the guardsmen kind of just get to push out in waves because you don't have the shot counts anymore to table me throughout the rest of the game.
Yeah, makes sense. And I know one of the other big things is like, if you look at like Glynisir's Kauyon list, he's still running like, I think it's like 2 Skyrays and a Hammerhead or something, and Riptides, and like all, you know, that's like 7 of his big shooting models that combined have like 40 shots, right? Like if they all hit all wouldn't you fail all the saves, you know, then it can kind of become a problem. But most of the time, you know, that Riptide is like, you know, handing you 4 real saves, and you're just like, okay, cool, I saved 1 of them, so a Riptide killed like 3 bodies. Cool.
Yep.
And it ultimately means that a lot of the pieces that are traditionally considered good just like aren't as good. But let's turn a little bit over towards the other like major archetype that people have been looking at, and it's like World Eaters or Blood Angels or Emperor's Children, things that are fast, things that can get into your lines, and things that have enough attacks that can actually chew through all of the bricks. What are the main ways that we're able to deal with those armies?
So there's 2 ways, and it kind of varies based on which of the armies you're against.
Sure.
The most clear example would be the hyper elite version of melee, which is like, say, Custodes, where you can look at the board and be like, if I -8 the only important charge, the army falls apart really quickly. Blood Angels is a key example of how that
Can I add something real quick there?
Yeah.
So like one of the big things, right, is so the 1-inch engagement, right? If you give them -8, it goes from a guaranteed charge to a 9, but it's also really easy to pre-measure. Like, you're not going to be within an inch of me. You're going to be about 4 inches away. So suddenly that -8 is like a 12, right? And I think that's like one of the big things that some other people are missing out. And the difference between going from like a 9 to a 10 is a really big difference. Anyway, go ahead.
And so, like, Blood Angels is a key example of that, because Blood Angels units, they hit hard. They don't hit as hard as World Eaters, right? Because a lot of the cost that they have to pay for is for the fact that they are move 12, right? And so you compare Sangard to 8-bound. The Sangard are not as strong, but they're move 12, -1 to hit, -1 to wound. They got stuff going on for them. And so when you can look at a unit that is meant to be costed because of its mobility and take away that mobility that it gets, the army starts to feel like bad in a way, right? In my opponent's case, I had Blood Angels round 4, and just being like, yeah, I am 20 inches away from your Sangard. If you roll a 6-inch advance, use advance in charge, it's a 10-inch charge. And then my opponent's like looking at that board state, and he's like, I guess my 270 point unit with the character, that's like now 350 points, just never gets to do anything. And that is a horrible board state to be in. And it's even worse when you can combine the 6-inch reactive into 1-inching a GW wall, right? Because I'll have a unit stand. Yeah, I'll have a unit 1-inching a wall, move them exactly 6 inches out, and then be like, hey, it's a 10-inch charge, but they'll reactive to 1-inch the wall. And so even though it's a 10, you can't actually declare it anymore. And so you have these cases where it's almost like your units have fire and fade, right? Where they're just poking out, killing a bunch of stuff, and if you go to answer them, they just hide and can't be charged at all. And so it's very present in that regard. The other alternative is obviously the horde armies, like World Eaters, where there is like, yes, you can -8 1 charge. I don't care, buddy. Here's 12 units, right? Those armies, that is my roughest matchup. And the real thing that those armies tend to struggle with is that none of their shooting is usually good enough to kill a screen. And so it's really cool just to be like, here's my 20 Catachan, here's my 40 Kriegsmen, and all you do is you just form a lovely wall going across the entire table edge. And then you look at your opponent and go, my unit's 65, your 8-bound aren't. Want to trade, right? Because there's enough 10-mans to form 2 walls of that. And so all you do is you make 1 wall, they kill it, you make a second wall, and you stand exactly 7.1 inches behind the wall so that your opponent can't consolidate into you, and you just force them to trade horribly. Yeah. And that's kind of your way of playing that. And then the absolute worst one is EC, which has both the shooting and the guns. And now you know why it's a bad matchup. Because the game plan that works isn't a game plan that works. And so that one is more a trading game. And like, say, the T-Sons, it sounds like we'll talk about a little later. It's a lot more of, I'm going to play the OC game rather than I'm going to play the tabling game.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, that makes a lot of sense because it is just... It's kind of how you were playing the Bridgehead before. I remember having that conversation where it's like, oh, how are you guys losing to Sinesh Demons? Here's a fucking wall of 40 Krieg. Like, you know, you're going to hit that. And then I fail my battle shock and I'm not allowed to shoot anyway. But, you know, that's a different... Neither here nor there. It does sound like it kind of has answers for a bit of everything. But one of the things, you kind of alluded to it, you ended up playing one player and got 3 draws into them over the last 2 weeks. Dan Maloro on the Thousand Suns with 30 Scarab Occult Terminators. You played them once at Challengers Cup. You played them twice at LVO. So let's go ahead and go in chronological order. Can you tell us what those games were like into Dan, starting with Challengers Cup?
So Dan was playing 30 Scarab Occult Terminators and a Demon Prince that gives a bubble of -1 to hit. And the reason this matchup is horrible is because -1 to hit and -1 to wound is an insane modifier in 40k. It's the whole reason why the Stormraven gunship, despite being not amazing, sees a bunch of play in Stormlance because -1 to hit, -1 to wound is really good.
Also Wolf.
Yeah, exactly. And so my ability to kill those models isn't great, but also I'm an army that loves to do death by 1,000 cuts. And so they have a strat where they're like, oh, you killed 1 to 2 Terminators, I'm going to kill the Psyker and blast your entire 20 brick and it's dead. Because the other issue is, Twist of Fate with the fact that their bolters are just innately AP2 is just disgusting. I mean, it's so much damage. And so the first time we played, we hadn't really realized that was how the matchup goes. And Dan's playing for a draw, and he just parks all 30 Terminators on his expansion.
There was a quote that you gave me last time. Do you remember what it was?
Oh, I'm curious. No, I don't.
You said that he walked up and was like, don't worry, buddy, I'm not here to win. 30 Terminators on his natural.
Yeah. Because he put 20 on his natural, and I found a play where I could take his natural, and he was like, don't worry, rapid ingress 10 more on 20. And I was like, okay.
All right, my bad.
And so our game ended up being a draw. It was like a 96-93 draw. It was crazy.
Yeah. Were you on the high or the low end?
I was on the high end.
All right, there you go.
Yeah. That was my one, like, I have the win in my heart, right? But yes, it was a draw. And then game 2, he was like, hey, you beat me by 3 points last time, and I had bottom of turn last time. And he's like, I don't think I win if we play a normal game. And so he uses an infiltrate enhancement, 10 Terminators 9 inches away from my DZ. Turn 1 gets it and just runs, right? And I just lose like 60 guardsmen top of 1, and it is horrible.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, and so the saving grace is that I turn bottom of top of 1, I up down my horses and just YOLO a 9-inch charge onto his expansion and just like fully obliterate his expansion. And I kill enough stuff where he can't protect me from rapid ingressing right outside his DZ and walking into it turn 2. And so he's like fully taken everything on my side of the board. I've fully taken everything on his side of the board, but he doesn't have the units to come back and stop it. And likewise myself. And so I get a really nice score lead going into the game. And then we get to like top of 4, bottom of 3 territory. And I have like 3 units on the table. Like I have like 30 guardsmen to like 30 Terminators and one Demon Prince, but I'm up like 30 points. And so he gets a 15, he gets a 15. We're both scoring cards. And then we get to the point where after scoring all of his stuff, I have like 9 or 8 Catachan on my expansion, and I'm fully tabled outside of that. And I'm down 2 points. And then I draw Extend Battle Lines for 2 points for holding an objective and no hits left. And I'm like, yes, we did it.
That's absurd. I love how how ridiculous that game starts, where he's like, I'm going to infiltrate and also going to win the go first roll off, and suddenly there's just Terminators in your lines. And I mean, it sounds like one of the biggest downsides of Recon is when your opponent's just a psychopath. Right?
There's an awesome Goonhammer article that received a lot of like flack, where the guy was like, if you anticipate your chance of winning is less than like 10-15%, just YOLO going turn one.
Yeah.
And it's very real. Like, it was actually one of the only criticisms that I gave Folger when he was like, how the game goes. I was like, you lose the game if you go first, but you probably win if you go second. Why did you plan to go second? Because you immediately lose the game if you go first. And so it's awesome. And so yeah, it's this awesome game because I'm texting my team and I'm like I drew the game. I hate this list. I'm so glad that we made Shadow Round. And then the judges are talking through and they're like, just so you know, it's 1 plays 16, 2 plays 15, and you guys are 8 and 9, or sorry, 9 and 10. And I'm like, God, right?
You gotta do it again.
And then the pairing is horrible. I'm talking to Dan and I look at the pairing and I'm like, oh, it's Terraform. And turns out 9 units on Terraform is bad.
But it was still a very narrow win.
Yeah. So, and the reason it was a very narrow win is everything just goes like really bad. He does the same thing. He infiltrates aggressively. He gets turn 1, so he gets to start the terraforming over me. But also, the shooting like full bricks. I don't kill any of the chaff outside like the Zangors and the enlightened Zangors. And so we get to like turn 3, and he's on the center and the expansion, and I can't shift him off them. And I've only killed like 200 points of models, so almost like 1,200 points of guardsmen that die. And I should be dead to rights here. But the really cool thing is, in his push forward to make that happen, he can't screen his DZ. And I'm like, I do the classic thing. He's like, okay, go to shooting. And I'm like, before we do, may I rapid? And he's like, I guess your horses can kill me off my home, right? That sucks, but at least I can come back there, right? And I'm like, okay. So I put my horses down. I walk up. And he's like, okay, so that's like a 3-inch charge. And I'm like, no. Terraform. And he's like, why would you do that? I'm like, he didn't know at the time. You can't unterraform your home. And so I'm like, okay, I'm just going to put the 8 points in the app now for that, right? Because I'm going to get it over 4 rounds. And that difference was the decider. I ended up beating him by 5 total points on primary, and it just came from terraforming his home and not killing him off of it.
That's really funny. I think that's one of the funniest like interactions of the game, is that you can't unterraform your home. But yeah, that's pretty good. So, I mean, ultimately, you played the same guy 3 times in a row. Every single one of them a WTC draw. One of them like an actual like dead to rights draw. Would you say that was your toughest game they had to play over the course of LVO, or the toughest like pair of games?
By a mile.
Yeah.
I like easily by a mile. Dan, the compliment that I said to Dan that I think is very real is everyone has a style they like. Everyone plays in a way that they want to, right? I think Dan has picked a play style that matches the way that he approaches 40K to a T. Because like just watching him play the list and watching him decide about what to do and everything, it's like very clear that like he knows the limitations of his list. He knows that like he's also a player who likes to spend 20 to 30 minutes planning out a turn and playing the turn perfectly. And so he's picked a list that allows him to do that, and it plays into the way he wants to play 40K. And I don't get to play a lot of T-Sense players, but felt like a very, very, very high level player.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and so it was good 40K. It was both like all our decisions matter. We're both playing around each other. We're both anticipating the other. And all the games feel like we truly do have to play all 5 turns. And I love 40K when that happens.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, that kind of does remind me about something that obviously the last time you showed up, I think it was on the WGL stream. It was not great for your image, shall we say. However, one of the big things that I think a lot of people were impressed with watching this time around, especially because I think the only time you were on stream this weekend was versus Folger, how in one how like calm you were the entire time. It was very obvious that you were like in your element and you were happy with the things, and also there were things that you were doing in terms of like I think probably the biggest moment that I remember watching is like, hey, these are actually two separate units. I'm gonna move a guy in order to make the like board state that you thought was true. And I think that was like one of those things where I think, at least for me, I was very impressed. I wouldn't have done that. Right? But like you clearly understand like recon is difficult to understand. Even though you have the correct models for everything, it's just a difficult army to look at and like understand what's going on. So I do want to give a lot of props to you on that for just like the growth and just like that personal growth that we've seen in terms of it. Did you feel more comfortable at this event, or was there anything in particular that you felt was different between the two times you were on stream?
Yeah, honestly, so the huge thing that I struggle with is uh, expectations isn't the right word, but it kind of leans into where I'm thinking, which is like going into a game and I look at my phone and I have 80 plus messages that are like, you got this, good luck, murder this man, XYZ, right?
Yeah.
And at the time last year, my game against Scary was that. And it was a lot of people just being like, so excited to see you win this game, you got this. And it turned from reassurance into an expectation for me. And it was horrible because I was like, I don't want to let my friends down, right? I want to just play a game and have fun, but I can't do that here because I feel like I'm going to let people down if it goes wrong. And it led to just like a full-blown panic attack where I just like my hands are shaking, my voice is wavering, I can't think straight, right? It's like awful. And so what was really nice was recognizing that and just being like, okay, the game has started, like phone is in the pocket the entire time unless there's like dead space, right? Now I literally like went to pull out my phone like going in from round 8 into 9, and Glenn, who was next to me, was like, nope, taking that away, right? We're done, you're not looking at your phone. And it was nice. I think the biggest thing was just having friends with me, honestly. Just having people to be like, yeah, dude, it's okay, it's a game, play the game. Because I love the community part of the game and I love everything about the game. And so I really just need to create, spots where the game is a game, and it feels that way and it feels awesome. And so that's been a wonderful mindset to shift to, is to just be like, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Let's just give it our all.
That's awesome.
And that's nice.
Do you feel like, because you've obviously played a lot of events since then, is there any more like just comfortability at just like playing against these high level players?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird because I've played the majority of the people that I play. I've just already played them on TTS before, and so it's more stream. It's a lot more just like there's a lot of inherent venom in stream that I worry exists, and it's also why I'm just like not the biggest fan of being on stream for these high level events. And obviously, I guess for people for listening, like for reference, last LVO, I was receiving death threats for the game, right? Yeah. And so that it's the stream aspect more than the high level player aspect, because I just want it to be a game, and when I'm on the table playing the game, it's hard to not worry about every small thing turning into that. Like even in the game of Folger, there's a spot where I'm like, here's my line of sight. I put my tape measure down. I'm like, as long as you're here, you see me. And just like literally, it's like if this was a normal game, I'd just be like, dude, here's the line, right? And it probably didn't feel that way, but actively, I was beginning to worry. I was like, oh god, hopefully this doesn't turn into a thing again, because last time it did, right?
Yeah.
And so the main reason, like 30 sots didn't happen on stream was because Joe asked us to be on stream, and I was like, I just told him straight up, I was like, absolutely not, Joe. I was like, if I am one of the only options, I'm happy to be on stream, but I would strongly prefer you pick anyone else until I am one of the only options.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think one of the for like a bit further context, if people didn't know me before 40K, I worked in League of Legends for like most of a decade, and I was on stream. I was a commentator there, and so I was just very naturally I got used to being in front of people. However, I will say, being on stream, if you've never done it, is it's stressful. Right? Like, if you ever like watched any of the chats or like been in the chats, it's like, this guy made a rules mistake, and you're like, okay, sure, like, I accidentally rolled an extra die out when I was counting out 50, like, I'm sorry. um but the other big thing about it is people get to listen to you, so you have to like not only think about the game, but you have to think of like, am I being presentable, right? Am I going to be okay? Am I not going to make a fool of myself? I think one of the other big things, so there's obviously like a scoreboard that you guys are using on like WGL, which is not the one you normally play with, right? And then I think the last thing that a lot of people are underestimating is those lights are fucking bright. And bright lights are hot. Right? Like, it's just one of those things where if you've never been on camera in a meaningful way, it's just uncomfortable. It is not usually a pleasant place to be. So, I do have a lot of sympathy for players, especially people who have not played on stream before. It's just, it kind of sucks. It is not fun to do for a majority of people. So, thank you. Like Joe always says, these people are doing this for free, for our entertainment, and appreciate that part of it. Anyway, with all that, one of the big things I told you, Nemo, at the beginning was, if people want to learn more about how to play Recon, I not only have a guide that I put up with Wesley's help like a week or two ago, so I'll see if I can put that in the description or something. I also did an entire another interview with Nemo several months ago when he first had his, I think it was the first GT win with Recon, but regardless, if you want to know the basics of how to play, there's a lot of good information between those two videos. Today, we're going to get a bit more nerdy. I want to talk about like some of the weird stuff that you can do in Recon that a lot of people don't really expect. And the first one that I remember that came up was, again, because it was in the game versus Folger. You said, hey, this is a very common gotcha. I can go to ground to kill extra models because I can choose to take the 6-up invul save instead of like my 3-up normal save here. How many times did you do that at this event, and what are the big circumstances where you found this useful?
So it is really good. Sorry. Question one: how many times did it come to this event? It came up a single time when there was a unit that had, after it shoots, strip cover from a unit, and they were just like, okay, I'm just gonna kill one model because you're on 4-ups. And I'm like, no, go to ground, kill 3, and the unit pulls off the objective, right? And again, full transparency. I was gonna say full transparency. I told them I could do that, right? But it led to an entire tank not getting to shoot because it didn't have, got pulled out of line of sight.
Yeah.
And that was also part of the reason why I was warning Folger in our game when his Falcon was going to go shoot me, that there was a model, right? And if he shot more than one weapon, I can go to ground for a 6-up invul and pull out a line of sight of the wound rerolls. And so it really comes up when your opponent has a unit that goes, after this unit has shot, select one or more enemy units hit by its attacks, apply X debuff. The most common one I get to use it against is Castigators. Because they have the D6+3 battle cannon, and they add an extra AP after they shoot you, and you're saving on 3s because it's an AP1 weapon, right? And you just go, hey, instead of you giving me 6 saves, I lose 2 guys. I'm going to now lose 6 guys, pull way further back, and not let you shoot me again.
Yeah.
The best thing in terms of on the table of setting it up is A, recognizing ahead of time that you need to do that. So, for example, if you're looking at the Folger game, I'm giving only 3 to 4 models in terms of line of sight, right? So, for example, the Sisters Castigator, only 3 or 4 models are daisy chaining out onto that objective. The rest are behind a wall. And you have to make sure you're creating a world where that 6-up invul minus 3 to save is a difference maker.
Yeah.
Right. And you can also sometimes do it if you just want the cover save for +1 AP, but your opponent rolls hot enough or low enough where you can punish them for it. But yeah, it really just boils down to your opponent is lining up multiple activations. Activation one is greedy, just trying to get a few extra kills, and you want to punish them for trying to be greedy for those few extra kills.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, castigators, hellhounds, whatever the thing in Necrons is, anything that like gives you a buff to like the subsequent shooting makes a lot of sense. You also talked a little bit about ways where you can use reactive moves. So you were saying that it doesn't actually come up as much as people might expect, simply because you can use it as the threat being greater than the execution for this one. What are some ways that you found yourself really able to use the reactive move when it does actually go off in order to find bigger advantages?
So one of the biggest things is Recon is really good at playing the cat and mouse game, where people are like, I want to make you do it, but I don't want to be punished if you do it, right? Like a lot of people being like, I could move 3 inches away from you, but I'm only going to move 7 inches away because I also want to be behind this wall, right? Or I also want to be towing this objective so that I'm auto seeing it, right? And so like a really cool example of this was in top of 3 against Deathwatch on the finals. And he wants to tow onto the center objective so that I don't hold it. But he also wants to, he wants to tow a model in the center objective so that if I stay on the objective, he has a 6-inch charge into me. Mm-hmm. But he doesn't want to go all the way forward to protect himself from plasma fire. Because it was just a clean enough breakpoint where if he had come all the way forward, he would have gotten within the 21 inches for the Cadian squad near him to get rapid fire on their plasma guns.
Yeah.
And so what I do is I pop reactive move on the Kriegsman, and he just moves 2.8 inches back. And the reason for that exact number is, well, coherency is 2 inches, and the base of a guardsman is 0.8 inches, 25 millimeters. And so I look at him and I go, okay, well, now we were like 6 point some change away. Now I'm 9.2 away from you. Yeah. So now it's a 9-inch charge. I'm going to make it an 11-inch charge, and I'll still revive 3 models onto the objective and hold it at the start of my turn. So you have now been insanely punished for playing the footsie game with me, right? This cat and mouse, where I'm just like, and screw you, right?
Yeah.
So that's a really cool part about the army, is getting off an objective only to walk back onto it. Which, by the way, is a really cool another trick in in Recon, which is if you're playing against assault intercessors, infractors, you're worried about storm muscle objective or overwhelming force, and your opponent doesn't have a good way to get to the objective without charging you, just don't stand on the objective. I have a huge amount of games where I will have the center objective, and there's just like 17 Kriegsmen in a circle around the circle, because I look at my opponent and go, you're either going to kill this unit and I'm not going to have the objective anyways, or you're not going to kill this unit and I'm going to revive a model onto the point and hold the objective.
Yeah.
And it denies full wound rerolls, it denies storm, it denies overwhelming. It is a huge trick to do, but you can only do it if your opponent has to charge you. Yeah. Right? If they can just move on to the point, it's bad, because you don't want to just like let a Riptide or a Storm Speeder just fly onto the center. But it's a really cool interaction.
How often do you actually get to do that?
Every game, almost
really?
Every game at this point. Yeah. Every game when they have those pieces, I will say. Like I was against Custodes, and that was a prime example of something I did against them. I was like, hey, I am off the objective so that if you want to charge me, you don't get wound rerolls, but also, right, because I'm covering the front of the objective so that they have to charge me from the front of it.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, so you're not going to get wound rerolls because you won't hold the objective, and I'm just going to revive back onto it and hold it. And also I inherently love to set it up because, again, it denies storm and overwhelming, and those are the best part about Recon is that it makes cards suck to score. And so you do that all the time because it makes it horrible, right? You have Assassinate, Coal, the second Assassinate, Coal, Overwhelming Storm, Cleanse, Extend, Secure all become hard cards to score. It's miserable for your opponent.
Yeah, absolutely. That is one of the other things to kind of talk about is let's talk a little bit about the list design, because I know you put a lot of thought into making fixed like not actually that good into your army, despite the fact that you have, I think it was 20 bricks for coal, and you have like 30 points of characters or something ridiculous.
Yeah, admittedly, this weekend I didn't care as much about coal. The terrain was good enough for me where I was like, if my opponent takes it, they take it. You know, there was no like layout 3, layout 4, so that I was like super worried. Oh, sorry, there was layout 4, layout 2 and 3 that I was kind of worried about. And so it's like, if your opponent takes fixed, you immediately win the game usually, because the whole thing with fixed is it's only good if your opponent tries to kill you. And as we've kind of said the entire call so far and on the previous YouTube videos that Joshi's alluding to, is Recon's really good at forcing people to come into it. It's really, really good at being the person who gets to trade first.
Yeah.
And so that's exactly what happens in the Folger game. He takes coal, and so all I do is I just walk 3 models onto the 2 objectives and go, your turn. And then he does it, and then he like kills a unit, and I'm like, okay, I'll kill 1 unit so I get purge as well. Your turn. Nothing is moving.
Yeah.
Right? And he is forced to go into a world where all of his warp spiders and Lycus and the Falcon all have to come out into the open to try and get these coal points. And he gets them, but he gets killed hard enough where he can't stop me from just walking onto the middle, getting hold more, and winning.
Yeah. Now, I might have more nerdy questions, but the one that I kind of want to talk about is when you rolled the boxcars on your Catachan Flamers into the Banshees. I think a lot of people in the audience were immediately reminded of when Folger was playing Matt Laura and he rolled the boxcars over to save the monolith. Did you ever have like any thoughts about that like in the game at all, or like when were you playing that game where it's just like, okay, this game was like maybe it was tough to it's over?
You know, it's so funny because I got a bunch of comments that are like, oh my god, Nemo's so lucky, right? And it's like, if you look back at the game, completely irrelevant to Overwatch.
Yeah.
I was taking it because it was free with Ursula, and I just wanted to mitigate the damage, right?
Yeah, kill a couple guys.
But at the end of the day, Folger's Flamers and everything was hot enough where he killed every single guardsman behind that wall, right? Every single guardsman behind that wall died. And so Chainsaw wasn't going to have a charge to declare. Everyone died, right? So it's like, yeah, she could have shot, but it didn't matter. And so it's like, it was cool. It was awesome. But like in the moment, I felt good about it. But as soon as he finished the shooting, I was like, it didn't matter, right?
Yeah.
Chainsaw standing on the center. If there were guardsmen there, she'd be standing in my expansion. She would just be getting shot there instead. Nothing really would have been that much different.
That makes a lot of sense. I remember one of the big things that Jack Harpster was saying on commentary was he was looking at like all the swooping hawks that were still on Folger's home objective at the time, and just goes, well, he wants to like full send his entire army, but these hawks aren't his home objective. Yes, they move 17 inches, but 17 might not be enough to like actually get them into the game in meaningful ways. Anyway, I don't know if it's possible for me to ask a question about like nerdy recon stuff that you can do, because I don't know this army as well as you do. I don't think anybody on the planet knows this army as well as you do. What's the favorite nerdy thing that you can do in recon that is specific to the detachment?
Oh man, specific to the detachment.
Yeah.
Man.
Because obviously, like, swing chargers are super cool, but everybody can do that. I mean, we've been seeing it in orcs as well. You can tag a billion things. You can put OC on different places. But there are some really cool things that you can do in recon that other armies just don't have access to.
I'm caught in a pickle. Well, it's admittedly because... Well, I was going to say, it's because my favorite thing is swing charges. And so now I'm trying to think of what's second, you know? I mean, there's a bunch of like things that don't fall in the nerdy category, like intentionally putting horses on the board so that you can rapid ingress. Actually, that's a really good one. Is the 26 Cadians off the table for rapid ingress plus 3 saves. because that is like one thing that like guard players we probably hear and we're like, well, duh, obviously, right? But it got literally every single one of my opponents outside of like 2 this weekend, where I was like, hey, just a heads up, I can do this, and they were like, what do you mean, like 80 models this turn are going to have +1 save on my shooting phase? Which is, it's really because the army really likes to have 3 rapid ingresses, and you don't get 3 rapid ingresses, you only get 2.
Yeah.
And so the game plan that I always literally like is 10 horses start on the board so that Ursula can uppy down them so that they can rapid ingress turn 4, and then 10 horses can rapid ingress turn 2. You can then have a full shove forward where you play to kill your opponent in a very aggressive style, and then when they come back into you, you can rapid ingress the last 26 man of Cadians on 3 in order to give the 320 bricks of other Cadians that fought this turn, currently +1 attacks, +1 to save. It's also a really cool shenanigan because into melee armies, you frequently get to also combine that with 2 +1 to saves, giving themselves +1 attacks, and then killing a melee unit in Overwatch. There's so much versatility in that 26 man brick off the table. Like it's awesome, right? Because you can also have you can also do the thing where on your go turn you give out 5 moves, which is a insane full ascend, and then ghosts plus those 3 orders, swap them all to attacks, and you have a go turn. There is so much hidden play in that 26 man that goes off the table with those 3 orders that no one realizes until those orders are going out just how good it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely feel like I have the most counterplay with that unit out of any of the other units in my army.
Very fair. Now, I gotta ask you right now as well, because we've been seeing that a certain UK player has been really pushing for them in Combined. Obviously, the Castellan has a lot of play in Recon. What are your thoughts on this new development that we're seeing of Castellans in Combined?
I mean, it's not bad.
It seems fine.
It's weird because that unit shoots so hard for how weird it looks and is and everything.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to think about in my head right now to like better answer the question is if that unit had -1 to save but had +1 AP and lethal hits.
Yeah.
And honestly, I kind of like it because you give that squad +1 attacks, and all of a sudden you're 57 lethal sustained last gun shots in Overwatch, or just in shooting in general. And into a marine body, you're looking at your opponent and you're like, here's 10 armor saves plus 10 that went through for 3 extra wounds for 13 saves, 2 guys die. And then the plasma turns into 4 to 5 guys die. You have an Overwatch that's genuinely close to killing a 10-man Marines and consistently killing a 5-man Marines. And then with the AP on your turn, oh good. And then with the AP on your turn, you actually have real staying power into even like Terminators at that point. Actually, originally when I started playing Horde Guard, it was Combined Guard. It was originally that combined arms Horde Guard was the original archetype I was playing because I loved Scions with their plunging fire interaction. And one of the best ways to abuse that was a Hellhound and an Exterminator with plunging fire. And you'd look at your opponent and you'd be like, lasguns are bad, but here's AP2 ignoring cover, AP3 XYZ. And Combined has the tools to make that happen. So
cool.
I don't think I like it without the command squad, but I think I like it as the big 20. Yeah. I think I like it as the big 26-man brick.
Interesting.
And it also works to replace Ursula, which not many lists are happy to have to be running.
Yeah, so. I think it's been interesting seeing like a bunch of guard lists just like starting to drop Ursula more often. It's like, but she just makes the game so easy.
85 points, 5 command points is pretty good.
Well, it's like 7 command points. It's like, sure.
You get 5 extra Vox rolls.
Mm-hmm. That's one of the things that everybody gets so angry every single time. It's like, wait, so you did that for free and on a 4-up you get a CP? I'm like, yep.
I think there's some cope, because like does it suck that Ursula's 85 points? Yes. Would I probably play Ursula if she was 100? Probably yes.
I think it depends on what army.
It depends on the list. It depends on the army. But any list, I really do think 5 extra command points is worth 100 points.
Yeah.
And she does more than that. So.
Yeah. All right. So pivoting a little bit because we're a bit over an hour here. I want to try and respect your time a little bit. One of the big things that I pulled in one of the chats we were talking about was, oh boy, I can't wait to finally play this. Oh, Krieg went up 15 points per 20. I think there's been a lot of speculation online in particular about like, oh man, Wesley won LVO with this horde list. We're going to get nerfs. Guard is going to get nerfed. It's going to be bad. What do you think is actually likely to happen based on your experiences of this army potentially getting nerfed, or do you think it's going to stay as it is? Do you think it's going to get nerfed? What do you think is likely to happen? Because not necessarily directly attributable to you, but definitely directly attributable to you.
I think the most likely thing is that the stratagem package gets nerfed. Then we wait 3 months when I play combined with NAS, and then Rulebook Dorns go up 30 points, and that's when the crying really starts. But in all honesty, it can't be points. They might do points, it can't be points. If you look at all the games I played this weekend against there was only really 2 that were there, but against both Folger and Tyler and all the other games in general, there was an entire 10 Krieg that usually never played the game, that were just there to help out if they were needed and do actions. In like 5 of the games, I drew recover assets and just had them go down in no man's land to go recover, right? And so what that means is that the list can lose like 65 plus points, and I'm not going to be sad about it.
Yeah.
Right. And so if my 4 Cadian bricks go to 145, I only have to I can drop the Scout Sentinel in a 10-man and change it out with upgrading a 10 of Catachan to 20, for example, instead. And it's the exact same list with 10 less bodies. The issue with the army is the stratagem package is really good. And so the real nerfs will have to come down to where that goes. But if it gets nerfed too hard, combined horde guard also isn't bad. Reinforcements is an insane stratagem. +1 AP is a really good stratagem. I'm not super worried about it, but I would expect reactive move to go to D6. And I would expect 12-inch no reserves to target a character model instead of a unit. I think those are nerfs that are real that we can expect. And if they do, you probably do see me play combined again and then just play that instead.
Makes sense.
But it's their call whether or not they want to kill the archetype, right? But that's probably what would do it.
Yeah, that's totally fair. It's one of those archetypes that I think is pretty far away from how they initially intended Recon to play. I have no idea how they intended Recon to play, but I don't think this is it. And so it is going to be curious to see what ends up happening, what kind of fallout we end up seeing. The one other thing I kind of want to pick your brain on is I know several guard players. I'm going to get a direct quote here from David Purcell. He was playing this yesterday on TTS. I'm going to put him on blast. And I pop in watching him play, and he goes, Josh, I've discovered a couple of things. 1, I would rather lose than play this army. And 2, my opponent would also rather lose than play against this army. He is not the only one who has said that. You have told me many, many times, Josh, just play Recon. And I just profoundly tell you, no, I don't want to. I played this game like half a dozen times on TTS, and every single time I don't have fun playing it. Firstly, what do you want to say to those guard players who are probably good enough to have some success with this list, who just don't enjoy it?
I think David's just scared, in all honesty. But I think that's valid. Right? It's incredibly valid to recognize that it's a game, and if you aren't enjoying the fact it's a game, don't do it. Right? I mean, the fact no one meta chases. Sorry, the fact that not everyone meta chases is a prime example of that, right? But also, it's important to recognize the limitations of Recon as a whole, right? It's financially intensive, it's physically intensive, it's mentally intensive. And really, it's not worth playing unless you are willing to commit to playing high-level games every game you play. And for a lot of people, that is not the game, right? There are a bunch of people who want to just be able to walk up to a tournament and be like, I'm just going to put models, I'm going to shoot things, I'm going to charge things, and if I win, I win, if I lose, I lose. Recon isn't that army, right? There are GTs where I'm like, Recon would win me this GT. I want to play Knights. Right? I want to break. Right? I have a bunch of Knights up there, a bunch of Marines over there. I have Marines down here. Right? I love this army, but even I have tournaments where I don't want to play this army, and that's normal and healthy. That's part of, diversity.
I want the same thing right now. I'm so sick of Combined. I've been playing the same army for like 3 years. I need something else. So, I'm probably playing Bridgehead or Mech Assault for my next GT. But let's go ahead and flip it a little. Sorry, if you have more.
Oh, I was just gonna say, right? It's the same thing of just like the army isn't one-to-one the army that you are playing as a guard player, right?
Yeah.
If you're like, I like tanks and guard, play tanks and guard. You wouldn't be like, I wouldn't be like, man, I love Recon guard, but I want to play something similar, so now I'm going to become a Chaos Cults player because I like the guardsman part of guard, right?
Yeah.
It's okay.
It's good.
It's healthy.
Let's go ahead and flip a little bit and talk about the other psychopaths who are willing to put the time, already have the models, and they want to play more of the Recon. We've said many, many times that this is an army that most of your average players are not going to have that much success on it. Maybe if they have like a bunch of shooting matchups, they'll win an extra matchup that they maybe shouldn't have before. But what is the single thing that you want to tell these players in order to have even a modicum of the success that you've had with this kind of army?
So the most important thing when you are doing toe touches is to keep your back straight, because but for real,
get a demonstration? Can we get a demonstration?
No. But it's your physical health is going to heavily affect the degree at which you play the game.
Yeah.
Because you need to care for your body. And as you become more tired and more stressed and exerted, it shows in your gameplay always, right? I don't think, like, Tyler, I think, was a really good example of this in Game 10. He wasn't mic'd, so you can't hear a lot of it, but he was noticeably just out of it, right? I mean, very tired, bags under his eyes. He told me he was tired, right? And I think... there's people giving him a little bit of critique over that because they're like, why is he making these decisions? He's just tired, man.
He's exhausted.
He's played 10 games of Warhammer.
Yeah.
And when you're learning the army and getting into it, you're going to get tired, and that is going to directly correlate to how you play on the table. And so more so than tactics, more so than anything, it's making sure that you game in a way that is healthy for you to game, right? And so make sure you're doing stretches, make sure you are, getting, warmed up and healthy. So you're not just jumping into an activity that is quite literally exercise for 4 hours without doing the proper warm-ups first.
Yeah. No, I do really appreciate that. I do know, like, at Challengers Cup, part of the reason why, like, my round 5, I played badly was just because, like, partly it was indigestion and, like, stomach was unhappy, but also just... you're on day 3 of playing Warhammer. I had driven 12 hours in order to get to Utah like the day beforehand. Like it's just a lot more physical than I think a lot of people expect, especially if they have not played long tournaments like that. Anyway,
I'm not immune to this either.
Yeah.
Too. Like I was gonna say, or the 10 games. I had teammates who were like, Wesley, we noticed you're getting tired. Can we help you pack up your army? And I was like, yes, yes, please do it. And so I'm not immune to this. I'm actively taking steps. I'm actively getting people to help me with these steps, and it is still rough.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the hard work you put in, both in terms of the list design and actually getting the games in. Before we let you go here, Wesley, is there anything else that you would like to say to people?
That is a very open-ended question.
Very open-ended.
That we are one nerf away from Bridgehead being good. Because all of our armies are about to get really bad. 07.
All right. Well, thank you for that. Thank you for a bit of the doomsday coming true, but we'll see what happens at World Championships of Warhammer coming up. I'm sure you'll be going. I imagine you'll be playing Recon. Maybe we'll get a couple copycats there. But for everyone else, thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you want more information and more stuff on Nemo, of course, I've got another interview with him on Recon. I've got the guide that he helped he'll proofread and edit. And then, of course, I also want to give a couple shout outs to some other channels as well. If you want to watch more of Nemo's games, there are at least 4 of them on the Tactical Tortoise Tactical Tortoise YouTube. There might be more. And then there's the game that he played on WarGames Live against Folger Pyles, which I believe I've been seeing the timestamp of like 4 hours and 15 minutes into day 3 of that. So there's lots of tape you can watch. There's lots of stuff you can do. If you're already part of the Discord, you can of course pay him to like coach you as well if that's something you're interested in. But the other thing is he's very open to just answering questions. So if you are part of the Discord as well, just be respectful, and him and the vast majority of players in the Discord will help you as long as you're like asking good questions. Anyway, thank you so much for tuning in for this episode of, I don't even remember what I call these, Tactical Debriefs, I think. We'll see you guys all next time.